It's Wednesday, the 29th of November, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1. Small businesses are increasingly using unpaid tax and superannuation liabilities to prop up their cash flow, the tax office has warned.
The ATO has seen a jump in unpaid tax from the sector and yesterday warned it would be cracking down next year. The ATO's second commissioner, Jeremy Hirshhorn, said that more than 2/3 of the $50 billion in collectible debt is currently owed by smaller companies. The tax gap, that's the estimated difference between what the ATO collects and what it should be collecting, that tax gap for small business is 13%, far higher than the 4% gap for larger companies. When companies don't work with the tax office, the agency can report debt to credit bureaus. That's when the troubles can really magnify. Since July, the ATO has handed over debt information on more than 10,000 businesses with significantly overdue and undisputed tax debts exceeding $100,000.
Sean, the comments came ahead of the announcement of a deal between Federal Labor and the Greens, which will criminalise the underpayment of superannuation. This is significant.
Sure is. Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke introduced the Greens' amendments to the Closing Loopholes Bill in the House of Reps yesterday, along with previously announced changes to labour hire casuals and the gig economy. The amendments mean employers who underpay super will face the same penalties and possible jail time as wage underpayments in the bill, which the Greens said was a particular problem for hospitality. Greens leader and an IR spokesperson, Adam Bant, claimed the amendments help fix problems that have seen workers' superannuation stolen, left teachers unprotected from being pushed into casual work, and given big employers the upper hand in enterprise bargaining negotiations.
All right, on to story number 2 now. And Governor Michelle Bullock was speaking at a central banking conference in Hong Kong yesterday, and she said borrowers aren't happy with the Reserve Bank after 13 rate rises since May last year.
They are not. Now, part of that, she said, is because the cash flow channel in Australia works very quickly. And mind you, despite all the noise about higher rates, Michelle Bullock reckons that households and businesses in Australia are in pretty good shape. Part of that's due to the savings buffer built up during COVID. Part of it's due to higher house prices. At least they're rising again, and that's good news for many people. She said businesses were passing through higher wages and costs to consumers because demand remains strong. Bullock said the Reserve Bank was now in a period where it had to be careful. She wants to bring down inflation, of course, but not impose too much on the economy or push the unemployment rate too high.
Story number 3, the Black Friday Cyber Monday sales are set to hit a record high $6.4 billion thanks to heavier discounting than usual.
Steeper discounts were on offer to encourage shoppers to fill up their baskets. It's estimated that retailers discounted on average as much as 30% against last year's 26%, according to a story in The Australian. While many retailers kicked off Black Friday sales a couple of weeks ago, the buying spree peaked on Friday at 10 a.m. The top-selling categories included clothing, personal care, shoes and jewellery, according to figures from online retail platform Shopify. The average basket size across the Black Friday sales was $165.70. Oh, I wish I'd only spent that. With almost 3/4 of sales coming from mobile devices. Australian Retailers Association Chief Executive Paul Zara forecast sales for the 4 days of $6.36 billion, which would be up 3% on last year.
Sean, before we leave the retail sector, story number 4, it's not a bad time to be working in that space. You've got some major retailers, Bunnings, Big W and IKEA, offering up to an extra week's leave a year in an effort to attract staff.
IKEA has agreed to increase more than 4,000 workers' paid leave from 20 to 25 days a year as part of an agreement with a retail union that also bans casual hires and enshrines office to work a 4-day week. It follows Bunnings and Apple doing similar deals, and earlier this week, Big W reached an agreement to allow 15,000 staff to choose between higher pay or an extra week's leave, according to the Financial Review. The Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association says 5 weeks should be the new standard after raising concerns that Australia's once generous 4 weeks leave is falling behind other countries. Now, for their part, employers want to rid the perception of retail jobs as transitory. They want more long-term staff, particularly in the face of low unemployment. France, Finland, Sweden and Norway are among the countries that require a minimum 25 days annual leave in addition to 9 to 11 public holidays. Australia, we have about 11 to 13 public holidays, depending on which state you live in, but just the 20 days annual leave.
All right, last one. Story 5. People born in the 1990s, Sean, and to a lesser extent the 1980s, have poorer mental health for their age than any previous generation. And the thing is, they don't seem to recover as they get older, according to a new study.
The mental health of Australians has been deteriorating since 2010, and millennials are the ones driving the decline, according to the study, whose lead author is Dr. Richard Morris, Senior Research Fellow at the University of Sydney's Faculty of Medicine and Health. Morrison and his team analysed the mental health data of nearly 28,000 people for 20 years, from 2001 to 2020. According to a report in the Sydney Morning Herald, there's little evidence that mental health is worsening with age for people born prior to the 1980s, not so those born afterwards. The study doesn't suggest why, but obviously Facebook was launched in 2004. The first iPhone had been released by then. Instagram was 2010. Snapchat a year earlier, while the retweet function on Twitter, which debuted 3 years earlier, was rolled out in 2009.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Wednesday, the 29th of November, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. If 5 minutes isn't quite long enough for you, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News wherever you listen to podcasts. Being a Wednesday, of course, you can also find the new episode of How Do They Afford That out today, our sister podcast all about making your money work a bit harder for you. This week's episode is all about doing Christmas on a bit of a budget. You'll find that wherever you listen to podcasts, and I'll put a link in today's show notes as well. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.